While others missed the moment, these leaders saw the signal and made the bet. In today's episode, we're speaking about a bet that is still underway, that was just recently made. Josh Blandy speaks to us about a bet that Telstra is making to cater for the ever-increasing demand on the telco network here in Australia. That increase in demand is driven particularly by AI use cases. Welcome to This Way Forward with Charlie Newark-French. My guest today is Josh Blandy. Josh is the head of performance strategy at Telstra. Telstra is the largest network operator, the largest telco here in Australia. And Josh, you're joining me from Sydney. You've flown in from Melbourne. Thank you for flying in. I've flown in from New York, so I get
just a little bit further.
Would you start by telling us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Charlie. Thanks for having me. As you mentioned, I lead performance strategy for Telstra's enterprise business. So that means my focus is on getting the settings for how we need to perform in year from a go-to-market perspective, right? But then also looking at what would need to be true for our strategic bet that we're about to talk about to work from a go-to-market perspective and for go-to-market to contribute what it needs to do.
Yep. Awesome. Well, today's session's a little bit different. We normally talk here about a strategic bet that someone has made and how that went. We're going to talk today about a strategic bet that you're about to make. Is that right?
Well, we announced it in late May this year already, and we've started to put a couple of building blocks in. We are committed. Public announcement, big public company. Where you know the clock is ticking, as they say. But yes, so here to talk about the bet that we are making. Yes. So I'll start out with a bit of the rationale as to why are we making this bet? What do we believe? Which has driven us to make this bet.
Tell us a little bit about like the landscape you're facing, the headwinds you're facing, like why you need to make a bet in the first place, and then we'll get to the bet.
Sure. So if you think about the telecom business, connectivity underpins our modern world as we know it. You know, from the days of when the telegraphs were first installed, you know, on land, over the ocean, to the age of the internet. And it is an industry and a market that basically 100% of the planet is dependent upon. I think
we all use it every day, but we're entirely ungrateful for it. I don't think about it once when I'm using it, but I'm using it the whole day.
No, it feels like something that's just there and will always be there. Right. So that in part is part of the challenge because despite the high penetration, the high the high demand, telcos globally can struggle to deliver a return on their invested capital above what they pay for that money, which is not so good if you're an investor wanting to grow your returns, not the best if you're a customer wanting more investment for a faster rate of product development or improvements in your user experience. Now, thankfully, Telstra is not one of those companies, but that's due to a really dedicated amount of focus over a long period of time to enable that. But that is the reality, right? I'd say, secondly, if you think about distribution, a telco's distribution is limited to the physical footprint of its network. And within that footprint of its network, it's going to compete with other networks that are in that footprint, and it's dependent upon how many people are in that footprint, and that's basically it. Right? The number of people and the number of businesses that you can sell your connectivity to within that footprint. That is your market. So the challenge is bandwidth demand continues to grow at double-digit rates every year. Now, if you step back and think about what does that look like from a compounding perspective, over time it can get quite large. But our traditional monetization methods in telco are constrained through regulation for good reason, as we were mentioning before, and because of the level of competition, just that intense fighting for customers within that limited distribution footprint that you have. Hence, challenges with ROIC in some geographies for some firms. I say the last thing, and this gets to the bet to an extent, is we believe AI again increases bandwidth demand, and it does require additional new investment in the core network to be able to meet that demand. But given the nature of bandwidth demand from an AI perspective, it's different to normal demand. So the investment is different than usual.
Different because it's just an order of magnitude like larger, or what's the difference between AI demand and just normal bandwidth demand?
Normal bandwidth demand is predominantly download versus upload, whereas where we see AI going over time is more likely to be synchronous.
Yep.
So much more back and forth between the points of inference and the endpoints on the network that are requesting the inference.
So then latency, the ability to respond quickly is the change.
Well, latency, reliability, but in both directions at the same time.
Got it, yes.
Right,
okay,
so
that makes sense, yes.
streaming Netflix on your phone or in your house is generally a one-way ticket for the bandwidth, right? Yeah. So to generate a return on that, we've also got to innovate our business model, including using AI ourselves to be able to profitably support that demand and generate value above our cost of capital at the same time.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so the challenges you're looking at as you're thinking about making this bet are highly competitive market, crazy demand from everyone, which has no tolerance for failure. Like if something goes, Amazon went down today in America. I don't know if you saw this.
Yes.
And that is just mass hysteria across the world for the hours that it's down. So no ability to have downtime or failure. And then it's just exponential growth in demand, partly driven by AI. That's what you're looking at. And government regulation just to make your life even easier. Tell us about the bet you're going to make and the trade-offs that might come alongside that.
Okay, sure. So our strategic bet that we publicly announced in May this year and have started putting the building blocks in place over the last year or two is that AI has the potential to make a meaningful, positive difference in the world. However, if the foundational connectivity infrastructure and the connectivity capability that sits under the AI stack is not available within the right timeframes or with the right capacities, the ability of AI to bring that materially positive impact into the world will be constrained. It will be constrained. So we're betting that we can not only provide the connectivity infrastructure with the right capability, but we can also be the connectivity provider of choice for consumers, businesses, and governments who are the ones who are actually going to be reaping the benefit of the positive outcomes that AI can enable, in addition to their regular bandwidth requirements, and at the same time do that at a cost structure that's sensible.
Yeah.
So if I was to go into a couple of points that bring that to life a bit more. So why is connectivity requirement for AI different? We talked about synchronous versus asynchronous just before, but what we'd also need to look at is existing fiber networks don't have enough capacity to connect the data center build out, which is where a lot of these, not all of them, a lot of these AI workloads are going to reside, in addition to that double-digit year-on-year growth for regular types of consumption as well. And mobile networks and satellite don't have the capacity or aren't suitable for doing that, right? The other thing is many existing networks were built for the internet age, so they're relatively old. They managed to extend their life to supporting the mobile age. But again, as I was mentioning before, the nature in which they're designed to work is different to where we believe they will need to be able to go in the future. Now, we made a small bet a couple of years ago to massively increase our intercity fiber capacity. So the capacity that we have to move bandwidth around between capital cities in Australia, regional locations in Australia, in anticipation of this demand coming down. But I suppose the other thing to talk about is not just the capacity, but it's also the capability. So the key thing there is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous.
So this part of the bet is just a big investment in CapEx. Is that what am I understanding?
There's a large investment in CapEx, which we already have made in terms of the intercity fiber, but there is an investment that we are in the process of making, which changes the capability of our core infrastructure to be able to handle much more synchronous workloads than just asynchronous workloads. That's correct.
Got it. Okay. Yes.
Yep. So AI, supporting AI at scale does require that type of investment in the core, as we say.
Yeah.
So what else is there? So we also have a foundational layer in our strategy, which we call network as a product. Okay. So this is where we're betting that making available capabilities in our network that normally sit under the surface of the network, if we're able to expose them as features our customers, particularly and in the mid-market enterprise and government space, would truly value the additional.
What's an example of that? Like a security feature, or what sits below the network?
So a really simple one, which we're starting to bring online now, is the ability for IT operations teams to proactively change the bandwidth for certain sites or across their entire network in anticipation of peak demand periods.
So the opposite of throttling, whatever that would be.
The opposite of throttling, but you can dial it up and you can dial it down.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Right, so you can configure your network to run under normal.
So you're going to go to government entities. Telstra's going to go to government entities and businesses, I'm assuming not consumers, and say you have the ability to control your bandwidth for peak times and lower times, and you pay more during high periods of bandwidth and less during lower periods. I'm just guessing what the business.
Well, there's a pricing model that goes along with it.
Yep.
Right. But it's effectively putting in the customer's hands in their ability to maybe do it close to real time if all of the infrastructure is in place. What they would have to what they would have to make a service request for, and wait a period of time. Right. So they are the ones that have the best feel for how their business is performing. If you're running a stadium and you've got a large sporting event there and the amount of people that are coming along are higher than you anticipated, then you want to be able to provide increased connectivity for all of the vendors if you're running an embedded network that you're renting out to all of the vendors that are selling things around the stadium, in the stadium, if you're running apps that the customers are using during the game and so forth.
Makes a ton of sense. Very valuable.
That's one example. A less simple example is, say, using our ability to confirm identity to be able to have sitting behind an API call, or at some stage in the future, at one end of an agentic AI workflow, so that we can remove a lot of the friction that exists within two-factor authentication workflows today, where you see a 20 to 30% dropout rate, I think is roughly the stat.
Everyone
today.
hates it, but I mean, we need it. So you're finding a way around it.
That's right.
To improve the user experience.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you may have more, and if so, carry on. But those ones you've said so far, so there's some capex investment. There's some like product innovation to allow for this like new synchronous like AI use case, and then there's this selling features that before you sort of kept control of and given access to them to customers, like the increase in bandwidth. What of those are things that your competitors aren't doing, and do you expect competitors to copy?
So
is this doing it better than other people, or is this like we're taking a stance that this is something a bit different to what competitors are doing?
Yeah, so it's a great question.
Yeah,
the bandwidth one is more of a table stakes.
Yeah. Okay.
Capability.
Yep.
The question that you need to really answer when doing that is what degree of control over the full network architecture are you actually exposing to the customers to be able to tune as they need, including the expansion and contraction of the physical sites on their network as they need. Yeah. Right? So think about how you just spin up another instance on your favorite cloud platform. If you're moving into a building and the infrastructure's in place, we're talking about something conceptually similar to that. But if it's a building and there's infrastructure that's not in place because there's a physical network requirement, there's a little time period that is required there. But once it's there, then the ability to tune and manage from I'll get technical now. The network control, the control plane is kind of where the edge is in this space at the moment. But it is more of a table stakes capability. Is what I would say. Yeah. Where it gets more interesting is where we have the one that I mentioned previously in terms of, say, identity, for example, or other combinations that will allow us to create a more industry relevant network infrastructure architecture with the right reliability, availability, resiliency, and latency at the right time when the customer needs it in the place that they need it.
Yeah.
That also requires a change to an evolution, I would say, of our business model.
Yes.
From a traditional telco sense to one where you can conceptualize it probably as having to spend more time with the customer, helping them understand now, because of the exposure of these capabilities, what are the problems that they've struggled with before that they can now solve more effectively? Why we're the right folks to solve that with, why they should do that now, what the value is, and then we go and help them do that. We see this conceptually in a number of SaaS infrastructure providers as well, where effectively they're selling compute, but they've got a analytics type software platform that sits over the top, and the more use cases you have, the more compute you use.
Yeah, I guess that's true. You're making money not only on the software, but also the greater use of the network. Cool. When you're making a bet, was there anything else on the bet before I ask the question on trade-offs?
No, I think that's right.
So when you're making a bet, it often relies on some trade-off, maybe a short-term one or something that you're not able to do as a result of making the bet. The example I always like to give, it's a tired one, but is Kodak. Kodak had invented the digital camera back in the day, but it would have cannibalized their print business and their print distribution business if they had released that technology. So that would have required a massive short-term trade-off. Is there anything you're doing differently in the short term or the medium term where you're like, okay, we're surrendering this, we're giving up this because this is the bet that we've got to focus on and we can only do a couple of things really well?
Yeah, no, there is, and we were very clear on this when we announced our bet a few months ago. We are focusing on connectivity, and we are not focusing on things that we were trying to grow previously. As an example, Telstra's enterprise division has sold its cloud or inked a deal to sell its cloud business. This is public knowledge to Infosys.
Okay, got it.
And we are very publicly looking at the ownership arrangements in terms of how do we get the best value out of a number of other assets that we own as well. But the point of that is to really focus down on connectivity, so that we've got only a handful of things to really drive out as opposed to a large number of things to drive out.
Yeah, cool. Two more questions for you, Josh. The first is, how are you going to track this? How are you going to know you're on the right path? Do you have a sort of 5-10 year view of how this pans out, and then you're tracking that along the way? How do you know whether you've made the right bet here?
Yes. So when we launched the new strategy, we made some commitments at the same time around our capital management and the returns that we would forecast for the market at that point in time that they should expect within a range at around the 2030 horizon. One of which was an increase in our return on our cost of capital. Right, above and beyond what it is today.
Okay, makes a lot of sense.
And so what we have done historically when we've been going through our strategic horizons is we have had a somewhat of a public scorecard for some of the key milestones and the key performance indicators in terms of our ability to make progress. And we obviously actively manage those internally with the right type of executive ownership.
Makes a lot of sense. And then last question for you is just, were there any stakeholders? And you mentioned the idea that there's the government regulation, there's the shareholders, there's obviously your employees, there's your competitors, but anyone you had to persuade that this was the right idea, that maybe didn't think it was the right idea when you were making this betting and announcing it publicly?
Oh, look, there's always a bit of uncertainty here, and I don't want to speak for the CEO, her leadership team, or the board. What I will say is that publicly we have said that this is a real strategy. It is not an implementation plan that we are launching. So we believe we've made the right set of choices to get us to where we want to be in the 2030 horizon. But we do not know exactly what all of the answers are going to look like along the way. So we don't have the IKEA furniture instructions ready to build all of this out, and then we put the screw in here, this dowel in here. Use this Allen key here, and we're all set and done. we still have to figure some of how we actually go and do this out.
This is the high level strategy, and implementation is happening, or will continue to happen, or will follow.
Well, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Cool. And then one last bonus question for Josh instead of Josh's Telstra. We're talking about a bet on AI here, which is what is on everyone's mind right now. Is there any scenario in your mind where either the AI rollout isn't as big as people think it is, and Telstra maybe and a whole load of other people have invested money where it isn't necessary, or the exact opposite, which is where there's some adoption which goes at a crazy fast rate and the networks and the infrastructure aren't ready for it? Or do you think there's sort of a good honing in of that right now, what the use case is and the infrastructure needed to support it?
Look, I think this speaks to some of the uncertainty that exists in the near term. I'd say part of the reason, as I said, why we made this bet is we believe in the longer term, AI can fundamentally bring some material good into the world. Now, we don't know how long that is necessarily going to take. Again, we are very, very focused from as I mentioned, a capital management perspective.
Yep.
So we are measuring quite closely our ability to monetize, for lack of a better term, the investments that we are making, and we will have a reasonable amount of control around the velocity at which we deploy those investments into the market.
Yeah, you may have to increase it or decrease it accordingly. Makes a ton of sense.
That's right.
Okay, this was a really interesting one. If you're up for it, I'll meet you here in 2 years' time.
Absolutely.
And we'll discuss how the bet
Make it a date,
Josh, thank you for the time today.
Thanks, Charlie.
Cheers.